Saint-Nazaire has retained its medieval manor house in spite of multiple renovations and remodelling phases over the centuries. The manor house is a fortified dwelling designed to protect its inhabitants from attack by brigands or thieves. The house does not appear to have been built following the castle model and was thus never intended to provide protection for the whole village. This role was fulfilled by the fort constructed in the late 14th century. As in Poët-Laval in the Drôme region or in the neighbouring village of Cavallergue, the manor house is integrated into the village walls. The same was often true of churches. This strategy enabled the creation of strong fortification at a reduced cost, killing two birds with one stone. A good example can be seen in Saint-Alary d'Ozelhan. The north side of the building features two different types of blockwork, featuring small blocks of dressed stone. Large blocks were also used in the region at the time, as in Pont de Gard, for the lower three quarters of the building. The top quarter of the north side features more crudely cut blocks. This clearly indicates two distinct phases of construction, which can be dated on the basis of the techniques used for the windows on each level, along with the use of rough-cut mullions. The presence of a segmented arch in one of the lintels indicates that the top section was added during the 18th or 19th century, perhaps as a granary, an additional floor, or even as a silkworm nursery, with the aim of profiting from the spectacular rise in the silk industry in the mid-18th century. At some point, this upper section was used as a pigeon loft. Examining both sides of the building, we see that the upward extension is not of the same height on the two facades, resulting in a 180-degree shift in the dominant orientation. The main facade of the fortified dwelling faces inward, towards the village, but the elevation of the north side over the south side changes this. The lateral wall, originally located to the north, thus became part of the south facade. This reorientation of the building, along with the likely creation of a garden or a courtyard to the front, is symptomatic of a greater sense of security and of the diminishing importance of defensive architecture in the 19th century, even maybe late 19th century. Looking closely at the facades, we note the presence of rusticated stonework, where blocks are cut in a way which leaves a rough, unfinished area on the front. This style of masonry is common in the Gard area. Imported from the Middle East by the Crusaders, along with a number of other fortification techniques, it was notably used by the Kings of France's architects at Aigues-Mortes. Along with other Oriental innovations, this had a considerable impact on building practices across the region. In defensive terms, rusticated stonework increased the resistance of the wall of stone projectiles. At the manor house in Saint-Nazaire, we see the rusticated blocks are only used sporadically, suggesting that the defensive elements of this style of stonework was of secondary importance in this case. Its use seems to have been governed more by fashion, showing loyalty to the king, and may have been intended to give a more prestigious, regal air to the building by copying royal building styles. As the socialist Norbert Elias indicated, fashion spread through society from top down, following examples set by the elite. The use of rusticated stonework in the manor house is a typical instance of this phenomenon. The presence of rusticated stonework also helps us to date the construction of the original edifice. Jean Mesquier, specialist in the medieval architecture of the Midi, placed the appearance of rusticated stonework at the end of the 12th century. Frédéric Lagarde proposes a slightly later date, which we find more convincing according to this theory. The edifice was probably constructed in the start of the 13th century. The fortified manor house was in many ways a successor to the feudal keep. Cheaper to build, it also fulfilled different roles and was generally occupied by representatives of the actual authorities. Fortified manor houses can be found across the Gard, including one at Algrès-les-Fumades, which features a heraldic shield at the top of the edifice.